This is the Storypunks podcast, a show where we talk about all the punks. So steampunk, dieselpunk, cyberpunk, and all the other punks. I'm your host, Cindy Grigg. This is episode 23, a continuation of my conversation with Holly Gonzalez. And I'm so excited to continue talking about decopunk and dieselpunk, and also the very adjacent Atompunk. And it just depends how you define it. Holly did go over her definition in the previous episode. And so be sure to check out episode 22 for that. And you'll notice, especially if you're watching the YouTube version, we also have a third person with us, and that is Max Gonzalez. So yes, I talked about this in the previous episode, but just really quickly, Max is the co-writer for Holly's Atompunk series. And so it is their series, and it is called Soul Swept. And basically, we're going to talk about collaboration, and we're going to talk about how they make it work, and also, just their lives where they live this kind of stuff all the time. And they can, because they're, a couple, and they can build their life around it, which is really cool. Hopefully it gives you some ideas or inspires you the way it has inspired me. So just for my update, this has been a week of cover design. I do put my covers together. I won't say that I am the artist, because what I do is I commission art for, different elements. So I might have the title or the, logo for the series created by one artist. And then, this artist does this or whatever. But I am interested in being the one who brings it all together. So on the screen, again, if you're watching the YouTube version of this podcast, I'm showing my cover for the Salt Sheen Paradox, Book 1, Hives of the Halcyon. And this is a book cover that has evolved because, as you may recall, if you've been following these updates, I had a different book cover for Book 1. I thought it was pretty set. I thought I had it dialed in. And sure enough, when I mapped all the books out in the series, I realized this cover that I'm now showing on the screen was not right for the first book. And so it just didn't match. It didn't go. But luckily I realized, hey, this can be the series cover. So if I do a box set, which is very likely, I can have this be what's on the box because it really fits for that. So doing your own cover, I'll just say compilation, it really has so many advantages. It has demanded a lot of me. It took me the better part of a year to become at all decent at putting these covers together in GIMP. I don't even know how to use Photoshop. I'm trying to transition to that, but at the time, I wasn't a Creative Cloud subscriber through Adobe. But yeah, so GIMP is free. It does have a learning curve, and I have had to learn how to layer things. I'm not a super pro at it, but I get a lot of satisfaction out of being the storyteller and having my covers come out the way I want them to, especially since I'm the one who knows the story best. Now, there's a lot of different schools of thought, so definitely cool to, hire a cover designer. I have mad respect for them, and I really, really like some of the stuff that I've had commissioned, but I just really find that there's so much value to being able to retain control of just the text alone. If I need to change some piece of text, it's not like a $50 charge or just a wait, waiting for that designer's time. It's really nice to have some versatility within some kind of graphics program. And I'm getting better and better. It is a learning curve. So I just throw that in for a little perspective in case you are also designing covers or doing some of the things that I'm doing. And so that's what I was doing this week. And it was a lot of listening to Buzz Luhrmann's Gatsby soundtrack. And thank you, Beyonce. You got me through, and anyone else who performed on that, because I was definitely feeling those vibes as I created these 8 covers and, in the deco style. So yes, once again, this is a series called The Salt Sheen Paradox. And if you would like to beta read it, that's absolutely available and open at the time of this recording. And you can even check if it's quite a bit after this recording, because there's probably some kind of way that you can get involved. I really value that for my readers. And so thank you to those who have already signed up. It is coming. And I really look forward to sharing that with you and having you share your feedback with me because you are punk enthusiasts and I really want to know what you think. So there are ways to give that opinion anonymously. And you don't have to commit to the whole series by any means, just whatever you have time for. So thank you for hopefully being interested in that. And then you'll also see another series if you do go to my site, cindygrigg.com. I should say when you do. But you'll see this Norse mythology meets steampunk in the Regency era series. And I'll just leave it at that because I've spoken about it before. But just know that there are 2 upcoming beta reading opportunities. You can do one, you can do both. It's all up to you. So, and then the other thing I'll just quickly mention is if you are a creator, if you are a writer, and you are struggling to get your word count out, just as someone who has recently been bailed out once again by the wonderful tool of dictation, so speaking your writing, I just would love if you would at least check out my resource, The Productive Author's Guide to Dictation, which can be found at theproductiveauthor.com. And I mention this just because the whole thing with dictation is that you can speak faster once you get good at it. There is a learning curve. You have to respect it. But once you get on a roll with it, there are so many advantages, including just a little more versatility when you have other things going on in your life, like I have recently. So definitely want to mention that as a potential resource for all you writers and creators out there. Okay, so that's pretty much what's going on over here. I hope things are going well with your projects. And without further ado, let's get right into the rest of this conversation with Holly and Max Gonzalez. I'm so excited for you to hear their thoughts and for it to spark additional ideas. Here we go, part 2 of this decopunk / dieselpunk / steampunk / Atompunk interview with the Gonzalezes. Well, in preparing for this interview, Holly, I learned something new about you. I didn't know that you'd participated in this anthology called the Writerpunk Project. So can you tell us a little bit about it and what it was like to be part of that? Any takeaways?
Absolutely. The Writerpunk Project is an ongoing charity project of different punk writers from many different punk genres that all came together. I joined at the time of their 3rd anthology. They'd already published 2 more before I came on, and I kind of happened upon it through a friend. Apparently, it started as a Facebook group in one of the major. I don't know if it was a steampunk or dieselpunk type of group that they started in, but they basically came together and said, "Yeah, let's make a collection, for punk writers." They wanted to get the punk genres more notice. And they basically published a retellings of Shakespeare stories done in several different punk genres. And they published 2 anthologies of that. And all of the proceeds from those anthologies goes to charity, to the Paws, I believe it is, to help homeless animals. So it's been great. My particular story appeared in their Edgar Allan Poe punk, Merely This and Nothing More, which I wrote a decopunk retelling of Poe's poem Annabel Lee, which was one of my favorites, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that, being part of a great project like that, and they're really, really nice people. If anyone's interested they do have another anthology coming out. I believe it's going to be I don't count me on this one, but I do believe it's going to be a mythology-based retelling one. But they do retellings. Yeah, you can do steampunk, you can do diesel, you can do solar punk. There's so many. But
that's right along what this audience is into. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you could find they're on I believe it's under Writerpunk on Facebook. You can find their Facebook page, and I believe they have a Twitter as well.
Very cool. Well, thank you. So as of 2018, when we're recording this, where do you see decopunk going? And where is there anywhere that you hope it goes, or that you want to prognosticate that it's going that way? Or basically, why does the world need more decopunk? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. My hope, as an artist, would be that people would discover how much fun it is. It's some people see dieselpunk and they see all this military stuff, which I think all that's great. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but war was a big part of those decades, and war kind of looms over us now, and I think a lot of people want to remember that there is, a little bit more of a hopeful side of life. Those eras were dominated by war, World War I and World War II, but, people still, dreamed, they still had visions, they still sought beauty, and for me, decopunk is very much about an aesthetic of beauty and style, and it's, whereas it's a little shinier, you have rhinestones, you have the Charleston, you have, parties, it's more of celebration. I think as we get into the 2020s that, and people were really into Great Gatsby when it came out, there's always been, and I've heard other dieselpunk people say this as well, steampunk is very popular. It definitely has a following, a subculture. Dieselpunk, not so much. Decopunk, no, almost none at all. But I think the diesel/deco aesthetic is almost a little more appealing on the mainstream level. You'll see, in movies, Wonder Woman, Captain America, all these, but can you name one real steampunk movie that's actually hit the mainstream? You can, but it's Wild Wild West doesn't count, sorry. But, it seems like the diesel deco aesthetic is very popular. It's just, it hasn't been termed as, diesel punk or deco punk yet. I foresee that perhaps that could happen. I would like it to happen. Just don't call it Gatsby punk, please. That's no.
I've never even heard of that option.
I don't. Somebody called what I did that once, and I was like, well, no, not really. It's deco punk.
You know what has a cooler ring to it is Zelda punk.
There you go.
For Zelda Fitzgerald.
Exactly. Zelda.
By the way, have you been watching that on Amazon? I don't know if it's Amazon or Netflix. Sorry.
Yeah, I believe it's Amazon.
The series is called Z, The Beginning of Everything, starring Christina Ricci.
I have it on my playlist, but I haven't started watching it yet. I definitely will. I love that actress. So
it's not really deco punk. I mean, it's not.
No.
It's pretty much, historical, or an interpretation, but
it's still great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely on my watch list. But I think at least, how it was when we came out of World War I in the early teens, which was a very, very dark time. People needed that, that boost of inspiration and optimism again, and my hope would be that, in a recurring cycle, just like how it was 100 years ago, 100 years, goodness, it's going to be the roaring 2020s. We're going to have a resurgence, a new renaissance. I think we're due for one, art, music, fashion, culture, maybe not even necessarily, everybody running around dressing like flappers, but just with that same sort of appreciation for the past and the lessons that it can teach us, as well as taking the dreams that they had and trying to find a new way to make it together as a society and as a world, which we so really desperately need right now.
Holly, you're just making my mind pop with what you just said, because that idea of having this renaissance in the 2020s, I love that, number one, but that's a really cool observation. And then just to think of what makes decopunk unique, how it is among all these punks that we talk about, a lot of them are focused around technology, but decopunk, it's specifically about art. It's specifically about an outlook like you're talking about. And so that's, to me, what makes it kind of a unique one. And I know you could argue that for some of the other ones too, but I really like that it stands out in that way, and that music was such a big part, and, Art Deco movement, obviously. But to have that in 2020, when we're so saturated with technology in our era,
Absolutely.
And it's nothing about technology. I write steampunk. I love it, whatever. But
yeah,
it's refreshing to get into decopunk and have it not, it depends how you interpret it. I guess there's decopunk writers that will really get into the biplanes, and I'm one of them. I mean, so I'm not saying this in any absolute way, but you know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. I do. Yeah, and agreed. I love steampunk. I think it's great. My steampunk writing, I have a few in the works. Really isn't anything like anything I've seen out there. It's kind of edgy. One I call it splatter steam because it's a splatterpunk steampunk mix up. And
Okay, take us through that for
oh,
anyone.
oh dear. Well, it started out as a retelling of the old Black Beauty story, and so I was going to submit it to the Writerpunk project, but I didn't make the deadline. But I'm still going to write the story anyway. And basically, Miss Ellen, who is one of the younger girls from the end of that story, grows up, and something happens to the world. There's basically like a rift in time, or something goes wrong, and there's an invasion of Miss Ellen and the much later. It's an automaton cyborg horse. It has Black Beauty's original brain, lungs, and heart, but it's inside of a steam-powered automaton body, and she basically rides him into the infested areas where these zombie clowns have infested, Victorian England, and goes in there with a socket wrench, a billy club, and a derringer, and goes
And that's
in.
where the splatter comes in.
Yeah.
If anyone hasn't put it together.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty gory, but she gets drawn into doing a job for this the guy who used to be a lord before he lost everything in the zombie clown apocalypse. And that's the kind of steampunk I write. I have a few other things in the works, but it's not what you would think. It's not your typical airships in the sky, Disney, type of thing. I like to turn things on their head. So
I want to hear something really strange. I've also written a steampunk Black Beauty.
How weird
is that? Mine is about an octopus who's Black Beauty, so it's a black octopus.
That is so cool. Oh, I must read
a horse.
Yeah, I would love to read.
That's pretty weird of all the books. It's not like a book that you see redone a lot.
No. Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about your Atompunk series. If you can take us through that story, but also, any new developments for those who have already begun with the series Soul Swept, or any other information about Atompunk or the series.
So many new developments, actually. I'm lucky to have my husband is actually a co-writer with me.
I didn't know that. Did he want to be part of this?
He could be, yeah. He can pop in and say hello.
I just never picked up on that.
We never mentioned it. He can pop his head in and say hello if you like.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for on the fly showing.
Yeah,
of you.
There are. I've only written 2 short stories in the Soul Swept series.
Okay, so what has it been like to co-write? And I'll let him speak first, just because we've been talking a lot.
I'll take an earplug here. We'll share. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You too. I'm Cindy, as you may know. And if you'll just introduce yourself.
My name is Stephen Max Gonzalez. I do go by Max, my middle name.
Okay.
Preferably, as there's just been too many Stevens, and I always wanted to go by Max, so I'm old enough now to do that.
It's got punch. It's Max.
Exactly, right? So much better. Anywho, that's who I am, and I've been married to this wonderful woman for, coming up on 24 years this year?
Yeah.
24 years. So,
wow.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And thank you very much. It was a real, pleasure to be there when she came up with the idea for Ruby Descent. And she pitched to me like, hey, I've got this idea for this space elevator, like fast storyline centered around, decopunk style. And my mind just started flying, and we just started talking. And from there on out, we've just been sort of building this world, she's been building it, but like constantly bouncing ideas off me. So
like a guinea pig.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it just happened really organically.
It did.
Yes, very much so. And it was, as Holly mentioned, it was sort of how can I say, an amalgam of exploration that happened all at once, including an exploration of the music, the style. And it was something that we were sort of gravitating towards already.
Yeah.
But once she had her writing sort of behind it now focusing a drive, it was irresistible. It just swept us both up, and
Definitely.
here we are today.
What a luxury to be able to like do all that research, all that investigation type stuff, and then to like know that you're there with your, you know, your best friend, your other half, and like to share that. That's so cool.
It's honestly been the greatest thing, like in the world to us. I mean, we've been together a long time, and we've always both been very creative people, but we've never got to really share. Well, I mean, she's played in musical projects with me. I'm a musician myself outside of the work that I do with her. Yeah. It really is a world that, in a way, we strive to sort of create and live at the same time.
So, yourself in, yeah,
definitely.
And the other, and as Holly mentioned, that it's something that at the same time, as you begin exploring it, you start finding, well, yes, the storylines and subject matter are things that the writers and artists create, but the template that they're using is something that was real. Most of these designs, these fabulous outfits, these amazing buildings, these amazing ideas for technology were real things. Some of them just never got developed. And now we're actually looking back to some of these designs. You can see even DARPA and a lot of the Air Force is looking to airships again for a lot of their new designs.
Yeah, that is true.
You know, you look at Elon Musk's reusable rockets. I mean, come on! That's you know, watching those reusable boosters land again. I'm like, that's retrofuturism.
Yeah, like, where have I seen this before?
Yeah, exactly. And that comes, and if you talk and you listen to interviews with him, they come from him having grown up in a time when ideas and possibilities were out there.
Yeah, that is so true.
Cool. Okay, well, I've been debating how to ask this question because it sounds like you guys have just made it work. You know each other. This has worked for you, but why would this, since you've had this experience, I won't ask you like what stinks about it or like what crazy blow-ups you've had, whatever, if they even exist, but why wouldn't this work for some people?
I think maybe a clash of personalities for some people. When you get into your creative work, some people tend to get very, I guess you could say, you know, into their ideas, and they're not very flexible. I think Stephen and I have learned to be more flexible over the years. You know, we collab on so many different types of artistic projects that for us, it's just kind of become more of we've found our pattern, you know, but I would say it would just take time and practice and patience for anyone who would like to try.
And as Holly said, you know, it's again, she mentioned the catch line for her book, Who's Got Your Back When Everything Goes Down. That's kind of a catch line about us. I mean, we've found time and time again that when it's come down to everything, we're all we really have, and together. And so we've had a lot of unique life experiences that have sometimes nudged us, sometimes forced us into having to give up what might be, for a lot of people, considered their own personal space. I think I see a lot of couples who sort of have that. It's like, well, that's her thing or that's my thing. There really is I mean, aside from my mustache wax, which, you know, she might use in her hair. I mean,
no,
that's, you know, it really comes down to about that. No. I mean, we share pretty much everything.
Not everything, but we do share quite a bit. Yeah,
almost everything.
But yeah, it's like sharing.
If it fits, you know.
Yeah.
Enough said. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's really, really cool because it gives a lot of options for people to at least try it out. I mean,
exactly.
You know, if it doesn't work out, step back from it, right?
It's an exploration. You don't know until you reach out there and try. You know, I mean, I don't consider myself to be a writer, but it's very, very cool to be involved in the writing process.
Yeah.
Because what's in the writing process comes from so many different things, you know, music, style, architecture, visual input, daily life funk. I mean, it when you come from the basis of a writer who writes from experience and is character driven, then, like Holly's situation, she's drawing from every resource that she can. And that includes a lot of people and a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And it's all storytelling, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Very cool. Well, it was wonderful to meet both of you. I'm so glad that this came out, and I'm sorry that I didn't realize you were both writing under this. So
yeah, I didn't really mention it.
I'm the phantom limb.
yeah. Support that isn't always seen in the end. But actually, the last two books, it looks like it's going to be Soul Swept will have his name on it as the co-writer because
cool. That
story is just literal. Even though it's a part of the first series, it's its own thing, and the characters are so heavily based off of him and I as humans, that it's the main characters are basically like, they're not like exact representations of us, but one character is definitely him and one's mine. So I don't think I could do it without him.
Very, very cool. Well, I have enjoyed meeting both of you. And is there anything else either of you would like to say?
Thank you very much for inviting me on, and thank you so much for having us, Holly, here on your show. I mean, it's really fantastic. You're a great host.
Oh, thank you. Well, I want to get more dieselpunk, more decopunk.
Fantastic, man. Yeah. She's the lady who'll hook you up. She is the Duchess of Deco.
Can I say that you're that? Because that's awesome.
You can, actually. I kind of picked up that name from a friend of mine who's also another dieselpunk writer. And I called him the Duke of Diesel, and he called me the Duchess of Deco. And
so Max isn't the Duke of Diesel?
I am actually the Duke of Rock and Roll.
Okay.
If you like, you can feel free to check out my band, The Dead Channels. We're a psychobilly rock and roll trio from here in Spokane, Washington, with a heavy hand referencing the past.
Very cool. Thank you. I will definitely post that. And is there a website they should go to, or just Google it?
Just look up The Dead Channels on Facebook. We don't have a website as of yet, but we have some tunes on SoundCloud, and we are playing out and about here in the Northwest area quite a bit, and we're bringing a lot of psychobilly bands here to Spokane.
Well, you guys just have like a really interesting schedule and life and relationship, and it's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's been nice to get that energy from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You are awesome as well.
Aren't they just the coolest? I just absolutely loved editing this and listening to it all over again. I just really appreciate the Gonzalez's, their time. And just as a reminder for those who may not remember from the previous episode, you can also find their writing and Holly's work, her visual art and everything at hollygonzalez1.wordpress.com. And on that note, I appreciate your time as well. Thank you for making it to episode 24 with me. 23 with me. You can tell I'm already excited for episode 24, and for good reason. I have such an amazing guest coming up next week, another 2-part series with someone who I've admired for years for many reasons, and I can't wait to share that with you. And if you're a steampunker, I can pretty much guarantee you know this person, so can't wait for that. And on that note, so in the past I've announced upcoming guests through social media and also my storypunks.world site. And in the future, I'm going to take care of that through the newsletter, because that's how I reach people who really want to know who's coming up, because then you can submit a question, or, even if you just want to know what's coming up. So if you are interested in, for whatever reason, maybe you keep your eye out for certain episodes or certain guests, then yes, please join my newsletter, which you can find at storypunks.world. And if you sign up through that, then it just means that I'll send you that notice, and I'll probably start doing that in a couple weeks. So just another reminder to please go and sign up for that email list. I won't barrage you with much other than, just letting you know what's going on. So, but I'll always let you know about deals or other things as well. So yes, please join the community in that way if you're interested. Thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. And good luck with everything you're working on, as always. I will talk with you again next week.